You wake beneath a soft blanket, reach toward a glowing rectangle, and let an alarm tell you the night is over. Coffee hisses into a cup. Your calendar already knows where you must be. Your inbox knows what you forgot, and somewhere a clock is quietly dividing your life into billable little squares. Now remove all of it. No alarm, no commute, no manager, no salary, weekend, vacation request, performance review, or retirement plan waiting 40 years away. But also no refrigerator, grocery aisle, running water, medicine cabinet, police station, or delivery driver bringing dinner through the rain. So the question is simple. For hundreds of thousands of years, with no offices, no farms, and no thing called a career, what did your ancestors actually do all day? The first answer sounds obvious. They looked for food. But that answer is misleading. Your ancestors did not usually clock in at sunrise and grind through 8 straight hours of survival. A hunt might demand an exhausting day of tracking, silence, patience, and sudden violence, followed by several days of no hunt at all. Gathering could mean walking miles, digging roots, climbing for honey, remembering which patch had ripened, then returning with enough calories to share. The rhythm was uneven. That mattered. In July and August of 1964, anthropologist Richard Lee recorded daily activity at the Dobie waterhole in the Kalahari. The Jukawansi adults, he observed, spent roughly 12 to 19 hours per week acquiring food, usually across 2 or 3 working days. Although cooking, collecting firewood, fetching water, and processing nuts added more labor at camp. No living community is a time machine, and no single group represents every ancient society. But Lee's diary shattered the idea that foraging always meant endless, dawn-to-dark desperation. Here's what doesn't make sense until you think about it. Why keep hunting after you already have enough meat? Deposit an antelope into a savings account. Food spoils. Carrying surplus costs energy. A giant pile attracts animals, insects, and hungry humans. So many foraging communities solve scarcity not by producing endlessly, but by stopping when immediate needs were covered and trusting social sharing to handle tomorrow's bad luck. That is not laziness. That is a different economy. Then came the work hidden inside the meal. Finding calories was only step one. Your ancestors had to turn tough plants, raw carcasses, bones, hides, wood, stone, and sinew into things a human body could actually use. Meat had to be butchered, tubers had to be dug and cooked, nuts had to be cracked, hides had to be scraped before they rotted. A chipped blade had to be sharpened before the next cut. This was the prehistoric version of maintenance. At Ohalawai, a hunter-gatherer camp on the shore of the Sea of Galilee about 23,000 years ago. Researchers found starch grains from wild grasses on a grinding stone, along with evidence of an oven-like hearth. Your ancestors there were not simply grabbing seeds and chewing them. They were pounding, grinding, mixing, and cooking wild cereals at least 12,000 years before those plants were domesticated. Think about that for a second. Even before farming, somebody was already making something dangerously close to bread. Weapons demanded the same patience. At Schöningen in northern Germany, carefully shaped wooden spears were found beside the remains of hunted horses. A 2025 dating study placed the famous spear layer at roughly 200,000 years old, linking it to early Neanderthals and suggesting coordinated hunting with specialized roles. A successful day began long before the chase. While someone selected straight wood, shaped and balanced the shaft, sharpened the point, and practiced using it. The kill took minutes, preparation took years, and that brings you to the biggest job nobody lists: raising children. Human children are spectacularly helpless. A young antelope can run within hours. Your baby cannot hold its own head, find food, escape danger, or understand why the fire is not a glowing toy. Without daycare, schools, pediatricians, or parenting books, your ancestors had to build an entire learning system out of people. They did not build classrooms. They built childhood into camp life. Among Agda foragers in the Philippines, researchers followed 78 children and found that care came from far beyond the mother. Siblings, relatives, unrelated adults, and mixed-age playgroups all helped watch, carry, entertain, and protect younger children, giving mothers time for food production and other work. Children around age 2 and older often moved through camp in groups, learning social rules while also becoming part of the childcare system themselves. Here's the part nobody talks about. The play was not the opposite of education. For Biaka foragers in the Republic of Congo, children began practicing spear skills around age 3 with light, wooden weapons, pretend hunts, target games, and small animal chasing. By adolescence, some joined adult hunting trips where experienced hunters pointed out tracks, corrected noise, demonstrated animal calls, and taught courage when the forest gave them nothing. Your ancestors learned by being close to real work. A child watched hands twist fiber, read footprints, divide meat, calm conflict, recognize poison, and predict weather. Knowledge did not arrive in 45-minute lessons. It leaked from every hour. The camp itself was the school, but food and skills were not enough. Your ancestors also spent enormous amounts of time managing the most dangerous animal around them, other humans. You had to know who shared, who lied, who could be trusted near a child, who remembered the path to water, who married into another band, and who was quietly gathering too much influence. In a small camp, one selfish person could poison every relationship. There was no human resources department to schedule a mediation. So your ancestors talked constantly. They gossiped, teased, negotiated, argued, reconciled, planned visits, remembered debts, and told stories that made invisible rules feel unforgettable. In a 2017 study of AGTA communities across 18 camps, 297 adults identified their best storytellers. Skilled storytellers were nearly twice as likely to be chosen as future campmates, and camps with more respected storytellers showed higher cooperation in an experimental sharing game. Why would a storyteller matter as much as a hunter? Because a hunter can feed you tonight. A story can teach everyone how not to destroy the group tomorrow. Stories about greed, equality, loyalty, danger, and foolish pride acted like portable law. They carried survival knowledge inside suspense, humor, monsters, animals, ancestors, and consequences. Your brain still loves that format because information wrapped in emotion is harder to forget. The campfire was entertainment. It was also social technology. Then there were the hours that make the old stereotype collapse completely. Your ancestors rested, they visited, they flirted, danced, sang, joked, decorated objects, played games, and sometimes made things with no obvious survival value at all. This did not happen only after civilization. It happened deep in the Ice Age, more than 35,000 years ago. At Hohlefels Cave in southwestern Germany, someone carved a working flute from the wing bone of a griffin vulture. The preserved instrument was about 21.8 centimeters long and had 5 finger holes. That maker spent precious time measuring, cutting, smoothing, testing, and adjusting an object whose purpose was to turn breath into music. Here's what should bother you. Why make music when winter can kill you? Because survival was never only about keeping a body alive. Music could synchronize movement, mark ritual, carry memory, attract attention, soothe children, release tension, and make a group feel like one thing instead of 20 frightened individuals. Beauty was not spare time. Beauty helped create the us worth saving. None of this means ancient life was easy. A failed season could leave your group hungry. An injured leg could threaten your ability to travel. Disease had no hospital waiting nearby, and the amount of labor changed wildly with climate, geography, age, season, and luck. There was no universal ancient schedule, but your ancestors were not waiting around for employment to be invented. They were acquiring food in intense bursts, then processing it with patient hands. They were repairing tools, carrying water, feeding fires, teaching children, caring for elders, sharing risk, settling arguments, trading information, visiting allies, telling stories, making music, and resting when rest was possible. Their work had no clean border. That may be the real difference. Your job begins when the clock says it begins, and it often produces something distant. A number changes, a file moves, a package crosses a continent, a stranger's account updates. Ancient work stayed painfully close. The spear you shaped entered the animal you ate. The child you taught carried your knowledge. The story you told changed who shared tomorrow. Hunger came at your ancestors with distance, uncertainty, spoilage, and bad luck, and they answered with memory, tools, cooking, and cooperation. Childhood came with helplessness, and they answered with whole communities. Conflict came with ego and mistrust, and they answered with gossip, humor, ritual, and stories. The long hours after survival came with silence, and they answered with music. Now return to your morning. The coffee is still warm, your screen still glows, your calendar still divides the day, and the alarm that dragged you from sleep is already preparing to do it again tomorrow.